So there's actually...
We are live.
Excellent. Thank you. Welcome everybody to NoVALUG. We had a little bit of technical difficulties, and we're going to be streaming from Reston, Virginia, as well as Silver Spring, Maryland area. I'm sorry? Tacoma Park. That's right. Nuclear freeze-up. They have an awesome drum shop there that I had gone to 11 years ago. Yep. And bought a djembe drum. So, so with that, Bruce is going to be our first presenter, and I'm going to just turn it over to Bruce, let him give a little introduction, and then just say next slide, and I'll take it from here.
Cool. My name is Bruce Benson. I'm a consulting engineer at Red Hat Incorporated. This is actually my second time at Red Hat due to the direct intervention of this gentleman right here. I worked from 01 to 02 when they picked up the entire consulting team from Needing Linux Systems, where I was. Then I went off to do a bunch of other things, and then he said one day something to the effect of, "You got to come back, it's better than ever." And so in 2010 I came back, and he was right. So I rejoined the same consulting group, which had gotten much larger, and we get sent all over the place to do all kinds of crazy stuff. I've been asked to look at airborne routers on commercial aircraft, FPGAs, kernel modules, DevOpsy looking things. We have a whole group of guys who do JBoss all the time. There's a little bit of fun tension between the real Linux guys, quote unquote, and the JBoss guys. It's lots of good times. Internally, as part of our ongoing development activities, we have a few different programs where information is presented and disseminated among us. This is the most informal process called a TEM, which is a lunchtime talk. This is actually the literal slides that I gave to an internal Red Hat talk recently, actually in November. Red Hat, the policy from a corporate perspective is to try to release the information as much as possible. Recently, our support case system was set to have all comments go public by default, whereas they used to be private by default. So in a support case, if somebody responds, you'll actually hear the back chatter that you didn't used to hear, which we thought I think the company probably thought it was noisy, but the people actually like it. Same with this. Legal team actually releases these unmarked verbatim for use by NoVALUG and republished. So the more sophisticated internal dissemination includes a thing we do called Tech Day amongst ourselves, and a thing called Hackathon, which really reminds me of the old LUG hack fests where you get together and try to make a bunch of stuff work, except now that most hardware works, hackathons are about getting OpenStack to work or Ansible to work or something like that. So that's where this thing comes from. You'll see a little bit of reference to Red Hatter. See, this is kind of presented from a Red Hatter to Red Hatter perspective. You'll see a little bit of that. But this actually isn't about a Red Hat product. We can present on anything that has to do with Linux. And so this particular talk grew out of a personal experience that you'll see very shortly about thinking that I might need to find out if my home network has been hacked. And with that, I think I'll just dive right in and flip the first slide. This is the motivation. You operate a home network. How many people have a router at home? They have an internet connection? Most folks. I mean, I did that just to see if somebody said, well, I went to my cell phone and I don't even need that anymore, right? But I have kids that play World of Warcraft. They need bandwidth. They watch Netflix, all that. So, yeah, definitely I have routers at home. Matter of fact, that's previous. Look at the previous slide. This is actually, I have a problem disconnecting old networking kit. I'll add more, but I won't. I'm like a legacy shop in a way. Flip back. I got an email that presented itself as looking like it came from Cox. Cox is my provider. And it says, we've identified one or more of your computers that may be infected with Spy Sheriff virus. And so I thought, oh, maybe I'm being phished. So I went and I actually called Cox, and they've evolved. They're really savvy. They actually said, read us the thing, and basically as soon as I read the digits, they were like, yeah, that's us. We have a system that will actually attempt to not snoop your traffic, but definitely from an intrusion detection perspective, pick up on that, and we will send you a notification. And I said, that's cool. Can you guys get me in touch with the guy who saw it? And I'd like to get the MAC address or whatever information. I'd like to try to identify which of the machines on my network. They actually got in touch, and they said that the machine doesn't record any information. By the time it comes through the egress side, it's got a WAN IP address.
Of course,
You're not going to get it.
Yeah.
So, but there can be other identifying information inside the packet, but he said no. So here I am. I've got machines. I've got a mixture of Windows and Linux. The Linux machines have been locked down. The Windows machines have been patched over the years, and they have AV. And so I'm thinking, how did this happen? Did this really happen? What's going on? Do I have an answer for this? Because right now I'm just asking Cox, hey, what does it look like? That's not a great spot to be in if you get a call like this. So let's move the slide. What is the likelihood that this could happen to you? Why might you need to know? So need to know here means having a system that would detect if someone is trying to hack in or has hacked into your network, and that's an intrusion detection system. There are basically two kinds. There's a host-based, which looks at file changes, and there's network-based. And so in this talk, I'll say IDS, it's intrusion detection, and it's meant to be NIDS, which is the network intrusion detection system. It looks at the packets and says, that's bad traffic. But is that really likely to happen to you that you're going to need that? Why might you need this? If you're a technologically oriented person, but your roommates or your kids are not, that's going to increase the risk that you're going to get hacked. They're going to download. I've had to clean out my kids' machines more than once. They get a song that's an executable. Oh, I want to hear that song. I click, and I gave them admin permissions years ago, for better or worse. And I'll tell you another way I dealt with that in a minute. But basically, if you have kids and they have Windows, either you have admin, or if they have admin, your risk goes up. Your home network, as small as it might be, is a useful asset to people who have botnets. They want to use your machines to mine bitcoins for money. They want to use it to set up click bots to generate income for them. They want to have a pop-up for ransomware and make you pay money to get your own data back. There's a whole Radio Labs episode about that. It's pretty interesting. I linked it at the end. Any machine, especially due to the automation, somebody wants to hack into machines, they're going to write something that just goes out and sprays the whole internet. So if it's worth doing once, it's worth sending to millions of IP addresses. Other folks want something specific to you. They want your identity. They want your banking credentials. They want to watch your keystrokes and passwords. They want to literally take your money. They'd like to find out that you use AWS and that you have an account, because then they can use your creds to spin up thousands of virtual machines and run up a bill in your name for thousands of dollars. There's another story recently where a guy accidentally posted his creds to GitHub, and somebody scraped it and rang up thousands in Bitcoin mining on that guy's account. Another aspect that could drive you to want to use intrusion detection is if you work from home. If you're working from home and your network gets goofed up, it disrupts your job and your cash flow. So that's another motivator. Here's a little bit of the Red Hat-y stuff. Guys who are engineers at Red Hat, they work from home. They're working on the source tree to an operating system that is inside many, many thousands of web servers and database servers. the notion that someone could hack into Red Hat and inject source code, malicious source code, into the source code tree itself and have it compiled in and distributed everywhere is a nation-state grade attack surface. So we have teams of people who monitor the corporate network, the surface of the corporate network, a whole other team that operates VPNs and monitors them. So if you're in a company like that, that is the gateway to some kind of asset. It could be just lots and lots of machines. It could be a target for corporations or nation states outside the states. Flip it. So here I am. I got this email from Cox. I start poking around. What can I find out? Well, my kids have Bitdefender. Well, I wonder if that did me any good because I just got an email from Cox that says no. Network traffic. This is what I use to look at network traffic, a graph. I can go to Cox, I can get a graph, and that says that I used, even though it's unlimited, they will measure it so that you can look at it. In June, I used 1.3 T's out of my home network, and I'm thinking, how much Netflix could that possibly be? Right? That actually caught my eye because I was so I got the email in August, and the big spikes were June and July. I wouldn't say there were major changes to what was going on. So it caught my eye. I'm like, oh, hey, I might want to solve this problem. So let's flip it. This whole story that I'm telling you has a bit of rationale from a learning perspective. We're going to solve a technical problem. When you do something like this, you get more familiar with your own network topologies, how to respond to problems in your network. Making this thing work will help you deal with small networking pitfalls in Linux or quirks in Linux that are specific to the system. It's a good little exercise, and it costs $35, as I'll demonstrate shortly. Really good skills familiarization, running your Linux system. It also helps you think of this as an architectural sizing, kind of slicing and dicing a problem. How many of you guys work in some kind of IT or computer engineering capacity? Or, yeah, a significant portion. A lot of times you might get called on to answer a question like, how much horsepower, how much CPU power is going to solve this problem? How much electricity is that going to take? How much traffic is that going to take? How much data is that going to generate? And so this kind of bites that off on a small piece because we're going to actually evaluate a few different things. So in this case, when you look at the problem at hand, choosing an architecture to sniff packets is based on how the activity is chopped up, basically how big your network is and the network load, how much traffic you're going to have to do. I didn't phrase this problem in terms of storage of the packets for later analysis. I just completely said I want to go with whatever storage space I have. When you place the device, there are different ways that you can place it in your network, and that helps shape the decision. Can you put this thing in the middle, or are you on a network that's controlled by your roommates and they don't want you to fiddle around with it, or are there some wireless? So we'll visit that a little bit. And for the Red Hat folks, this actually won't use any Red Hat products. It's going to use a Debian derivative and an architecture that Realm wasn't shipped on, and so this was designed to help them broaden their horizons a little bit. They're going to see a little ARM and a little Debian today. Flip it. Thanks. Welcome to my house. This is what my home network looks like. I have all my kids here with a bunch of windows, and there's a little Synology server. And then when I gave the kids admin, I segmented my stuff off on another router that's kind of cascaded. Cable modem to Cox, and I don't know what that's trying to say. This half's pretty standard. Sometimes you'll see some of this where you've got a home office. So this is what we're going to design our NIDS to work against. Thank you. Now that I've given it some thought, what am I going to do about the problem at hand? So I thought maybe I could do a NIDS with this. Well, what's the whole universe of solutions? I could reinstall the OS. Maybe I didn't like Bitdefender. Maybe it didn't work. I don't even know yet. I could put some host intrusion detection, like Tripwire, OSSec, and just see if files are changing. I could go with the NIDS, and I could buy something COTS. I could buy just right off the shelf, plug it in, pay some money, there may be a subscription fee, and just go with that. Or I could cook my own. Well, that sounds like fun. So let's move on to the next slide. In this, as a design problem, we'll say there's some constraints. Let's say I have a spouse. I'm currently not afflicted with that problem, but let's say it was $99 is your limit to build this thing. It's going to have to sit in the closet with the rest of the networking gear. There's just a power outlet, so it's not like we're going to buy a big rack of servers to snarf every single little packet in the world. It's whatever's going to fit in the closet. To size up your problem, you want to know how much traffic is going on. This particular case has a 50 meg down and a 5 meg up cable modem connection that's burstable. And other stuff on other measurements you can make can demonstrate how true that is or how much really happens. I have a device. It's a current Linksys OpenWRT ready, like a 1200. Pretty nifty, and it'll actually show what's really being used. If I have 2 Netflix streams, a Spotify, kid playing WoW, and the other kid playing Xbox, it aggregates to about 12 megs continuous. And so that's really our major design constraint. In my house, like in a bigger organization, if I deploy this thing, what's the impact? Do I have to disconnect the network? Do I have to tell the kids, oh, the network's going down? It's a small version of, at work, is there going to be an outage? That would prompt design changes to minimize the outage based on what can be tolerated. Well, if I tell my kids you're not having internet for a couple hours, then we're good. So I don't have to sweat that. As I explored it, I discovered some nuances about the design. The best thing to do is to try to place this device at what I call the apex. In a former life, banks paid me to hack into their networks and also look at the traffic that was on there. And one of the things I would do is connect right in the segment that was about to go out to the internet. And because that's just the best place. I don't have to replumb all of their other network segments to mirror traffic back to me. As you get to learn about NIDS, it wants to look at packets and detect problems. It's very CPU intensive. And so you may want to designate a device just for this and not put it on your firewall. Other people think about, I've talked to other folks in there and they're like, well, I've got a Fedora firewall, I'll just put it on that. Well, that may or may not be the thing for you. When you look at what's out there, if any of you folks play around with small bits of gear or embedded gear, they're 2015, 2016, if you wanted to just pay the money, you can pay $200 for a WatchGuard T10 and the subscription. I didn't put that in there, but another brand is Indian Firewall. The device is $1,000 and it's $385 a year. I think WatchGuard is somewhere in the $200 to $300. Zywall, similar story. Device doesn't cost too much. The annual subscription is in the multiple $100 story. Somebody's doing a Kickstarter. It's actually in a post-Kickstarter phase for what they call an iShield for $249. And you can actually use your own hardware and put a VM in there that's called Unified Threat Management, and the costs are pretty similar. The it's interesting that computers have evolved to where the device itself represents a small part of the overall cost of the vigilance. On the open source side, you probably got an old PC laying around. Is it good enough for the job? I don't know, but it's free. It's sitting there gathering dust. There's you can buy AMD, Bobcat, or Intel machines, bareboard PCs for 124 bucks. You could buy Linksys or what have you, or have an old Buffalo and put OpenWRT on that and run something, but we'll have enough horsepower. Then there's Splat.Pi, Banana Pi, Orange Pi, Raspberry Pi. There are so many Pi variances. If you go out on Alibaba, there's just lots of really interesting stuff with more or less hardware, SATA or not, HDMI or not, more cores or not, more memory. The interesting one to me, caught my eye, was a Banana Pi R1, 8 ARM cores, gig of RAM, 88 bucks. A lot of horsepower. Raspberry Pi 2, 4 cores, and gigabit Ethernet, which gets us into that 50 meg for sure category, 35 bucks. That's pretty attractive. And if you want to go even cheaper, you can get that quad arm and go back to Hunter base for 15 bucks China Post. Now we've enumerated the universe of possible devices. We'll do the same for the software itself, the NIDS software. Currently, and you'll need to pick an OS, and it's usually driven by the software itself. What will the software run on? You could run, this was industrial strength, I need support and production capacity and uptime. You could go with RHEL and get Snort. Snort will run on RHEL. You can do subscriptions for the data, and there are lots of cookbooks on the internet to make this happen. Lower cost items, Fedora 21. You could use Raspbian, Ubuntu, Kali on x86 or ARM or whatever Debian supports, really, because Debian supports about 10 architectures. Or even some of the IDS systems will run on OpenWRT. So if you got an OpenWRT machine with a few extra cores, you'll see that more now. There are multi-core commercial bits of gear that you could run this stuff on. Getting down to the stuff itself, the major items, the 3 big players are Snort, Suricata, and Bro. Snort's been around a long time, and they are just proven reliable. They use live PCAP, very standard stuff. Some people, I don't have a dog in the hunt here, but some people say, well, Snort is single-threaded. That means you have to spawn multiple processes, and it's just getting long in the tooth technologically. They have responses to that, so that may or may not be substantive. Suricata is a new multi-threaded architecture for sniffing packets. It has multiple capture devices, modern zero-copy, really nifty stuff. And then there's a thing called Bro IDS, which is an event-based. It's kind of behavioral driven. Whereas the first 2 literally match against signatures. The third one is more like the SE Linux of, or like a behavior-based virus AV system. Go ahead and flip it. We start trying to smash the 2 hardware software bits together, and we find out the router I'm using is just not going to get it done. You can actually place the sensor on the outside, on the internet side, and that has other risks of having the device itself get hacked, and so it's better to have it just on the inside. So what I decided was, for this case, you could buy a device for 49 bucks. It runs Linux, and you could set up a mirror tap, and it could sit right in the middle. So that was my thing.
Yeah, that was my suggestion, is you just set up a port mirroring on your switch,
Yeah.
so you're not in the loop at all.
This thing has a Cavium processor. This actually, not a plug for Ubiquity, but Ubiquity is hitting a real sweet spot in small business. 49 bucks, and the packet throughput is off the chart, near wire speed, and this is 5 gigabit ports. Because of the multi-core aspect and a small footprint, I went with Suricata. Because Snort's multi-threaded thing is still in alpha, and performance-wise, from what I checked, Suricata is just way beyond anything Bro can perform at. And so I found multiple guides on the internet that say, get a Raspberry Pi, get Kali Linux for RPi 2, and you can install Suricata lickety split, and that was it. So let's do that. So what we do is go back a little bit.
Sorry.
A little bit of the usage strategy. You're going to have a thing that has to get updated a lot like your antivirus. There are new signatures coming out for the various packets. It's almost literally like an antivirus. And so these are called rule sets. There are subscription services you can pay. There are free services. We're going to use tools like Oinkmaster and Pulled Pork to actually go automatically get those rules, jam them into your device, and use them. And that means you've made a lifestyle commitment. You're going to either need to set up a cron job to do this, or periodically update the rules yourself. So this thing is kind of like a little Tamagotchi. Every once in a while, you've got to feed it new stuff. Also, when it starts detecting traffic, you're going to get stuff, and you got to look at it and go, is this a problem? And so you're going to evolve your rule set to tune out certain traffic, and we'll see a little bit of that in a second. So there's like an ongoing commitment to doing one of these things. Next slide, please. A little bit about Suricata. This software, even though it's open source, it's actually government funded. SPAWAR and Homeland are actually making contributions to this thing. Very advanced capture devices, PF ring, AF packet, PCAP. So there are kernel module capture devices that really reduce the time. So if you want to crank, this thing scales huge. They've ported it to weird architectures that have very large core counts like Telera or GPUs. A lot of features here. You can have geographic IP checking, so you get a packet, you can bounce it and say, where did that guy attack me from? You can actually have this thing extract a file out of the stream of packets, so you can see what payload your attacker's trying to inject in you. So this thing is set up for a large group of people to seriously analyze the attacks, in addition to simply telling a regular guy like me that I am being attacked. This it spun up really quick. I call it the Docker, the security world, but I don't mean Docker the product, I meant Docker the community. Docker as a product spun up extremely fast in the last couple of years, and it's the same story with Suricata. The device itself, probably don't need to go over it with you guys. The Raspberry 2 is a lot faster than the Raspberry 1. Raspberry 1 was like a miracle, and now this thing is actually really fast. If you use the X Window system on it, it's amazing.
It's almost good enough to use as a desktop replacement. I mean, that's how good it is.
Yeah, I agree. There is one ugly flaw, in my opinion. This thing does not have a hardware clock. It doesn't have a battery back clock. Yeah. Super annoying. And that is important here because you're going to have to correlate log activity with other machines, and so you're going to need an NTP server.
Or you're going to need to spend about 12 bucks on hardware and put a clock on it.
Yeah, I have that. I haven't installed it yet, but you're right. They're all over Amazon. You just push the button, and it's got a little I2C device that you jack into the GPIO. So let's go.
And also some accessories that you buy also come with it. Some accessories that you buy also come with it too. So like at home I'm going to be playing with a paper type thing.
Oh, what?
The e-paper type thing, that
Yeah.
actually required a hardware component.
Yeah, there are these, I guess you're talking about a colosteric display, a black and white, that uses a lot less power. They've got little touch screens that you can fit into the official Raspberry Pi case. I bought one, I haven't plugged that in yet. I've been going to New York for a while. I don't know what's up with New York. Yeah, the Pi 2 is super. Anybody got a Zero yet?
Yeah, I got 2 of them.
Yeah,
It's pretty smooth.
yeah. When I saw it, I was like, oh, I gotta have one for $5. I mean, I can just put it on a keychain.
There it is.
Yeah, exactly, right?
Unfortunately, I forgot to put the credentials for NoVALUG on this guy. I've got him on this one. I'm trying to set up an FT connection between these two, but I can't figure out what the IP address is on this guy. So I'm going to try something else here. But I'm still in a position to.
Alrighty.
Do you have a way to plug a display into that one? I can type the credentials in by hand. I've done it enough.
Yeah,
All right, we'll let this go, but yeah.
yeah, I got a little instant keyboard and mouse action if you want. By the way,
A what?
keyboard. This you think? I bought a really small computer. It would be cool to have a small keyboard and a mouse. This is a bad idea. I need to hire a little kid. And then I'm doing. Did you see me a minute ago doing this? No.
I got one that's just a little bit larger than that. It's one of the Logitech defined wireless ones. It's not too bad.
Yeah, I've got a bunch of the when they discontinued the ThinkPad key. Like you can buy this in a USB keyboard. I bought a bunch of those. All right, we've made our decisions. Let's bring this guy up. Go out, buy a Raspberry Pi 2 somewhere for $35. You're gonna put in whatever device you decided or whatever you're gonna do to plumb up your network topology. For Raspberry Pi, the SOP is to download an image and run it onto SD card. Burn it onto SD. You pop it in. The new guy, it's actually the micro now, and pop it in, connect what you got going on, and light it up. Shell in. By the way, Kali will come with a default set of SSH keys. That means the thing could get hacked if you put it on the internet because everybody's got those keys. Wipe them out. Fire up SSHD and shell in the device. First thing you're going to want to do is expand the SD card. Your image usually will be limited in size to like 4 or maybe 8 gigs. And you're going to want to expand that to the entire space on the drive that you bought. There's a thing called Raspberry config. Actually, it's been acting up on this, but Raspberry config, it's a curses system to change major parameters on this thing. You can change, I think, the video memory allocations, things like that.
On the new Jesse release, they've actually gotten rid of the command line Raspberry config and put it as a X Windows application.
But you can still get to the command line.
Oh, I hadn't been able to find that.
It's somewhere, but I haven't had enough time to spend it.
They apparently changed the command line, so if you try just Raspberry config, it's gone. But if it's there, that's cool.
So the one in the repos that Kali points to, I run it, I say expand it, it says, yep, it's done, reboot your box, comes up, same size. So I'm hoping for a fix there. And in the spirit of NoVALUG, if we want, after this is all over, we can fire this thing up, and if you guys want to poke around, you're welcome to do it. Your sensor interface. So here's I made an important design choice here. What's going on is the Ethernet is gonna sniff the wire. And I have a separate interface on wireless that I'm gonna go in as an admin. Now, the slickest thing you can do is your wired interface, don't even put an IP address on it. You're gonna basically let Suricata put the interface in permisc mode. Well, it may not even do that. It's just going to copy the buffers. I think it won't put it. It depends on the driver, actually. But that's the upshot. you will have to bring up the interface. Otherwise, it just goes, huh? Little items here, you can look at these later. For Kali, you want to kill DHCP, kill any link local interface declarations in Etsy network. Kali is currently shipping with firewall D. You're going to need to mask that, and kill network manager too. The routing table, you want to make sure you bring up etho. You want to make sure it's not in anybody's routes, because then things will start to get confused. On the admin interface, you're going to just give it a. I decided to give it a static IP and let SSH and NTP out, and that should do it for what this thing needs. There's no bridging. You don't have to worry about that business. Please. So this is the new topology. Cable modem, a router I call the Apex. This is the Ubiquity ERX going in the middle here with a mirror port to the Pi. These are the two networks that were formerly, broken out. And here's my NTP server. Synology, bang for the buck, and you can just go into a GUI and say, yeah, I want an NTP server, or I want a whatever. And it's got Linux shell. It's pretty banging. So this is the new way I'm going to do it. I'm going to go in on a machine here, shell in when I want to look at stuff, and meanwhile it's going to sniff all the traffic regardless of where it goes. Please. Apt-get install Suricata. Oinkmaster manages the rules for you. You'll want to put in emerging threats. That's a free rule set with like a 1-week delay. Which is generally sufficient for a lot of folks. You'll want to tell Suricata where to get these rules, and then you're going to tell Oinkmaster, go get the rules and give them to Suricata. And you're going to want to enable that rule list. And this is the part, this telling Oinkmaster to massage the rule set and give it to Suricata, that's the part that you're going to do periodically. If you want to cron something, this line's going to be the one. Flip it, please. Address groups means that Suricata will tag its log files based on things that mean something to you. You can say, this subnet is my home network, this is my work network, or whatever you want to name it. So when you're looking at the log files later, it'll say, possible Trojan on the home network, instead of you looking at and having to pull that apart. It is capable of reassembling packets, reassembling TCP into a complete packet to find malware that tries to use fragmentation to get around detection. And when it sets up the TCP session, it fits a certain, it has a certain flavor kind of signature based on the OS. Just saying Windows will help Suricata understand how to defrag the traffic and look for malware. And your capture types, basically the default way that it grabs the packets should be good, but you can look at the YAML file that configures Suricata for any Ethernet, and that's a good little, this is where you get to learn the thing yourself. You start looking at the documentations and seeing what the changes mean to you. Now we're going to actually light this thing up, set up a screen session. Suricata runs from the command line and does not, it just runs. You'll see some output actually on the screen. You want to make sure that etho is up, even though it doesn't have an address configured, so that it can snarf the packets. And then you say, Suricata, start with my config file against etho, and it will light up. And you'll see stuff like this. If you get to processing, you're in business. Engine is started. And so this actually takes a few minutes. What it does is it starts a single thread first. You can actually turn this. Starts a single thread first to set up the data structures to actually snarf the packets. and you'll see one process suck 100% of the CPU. And then if you flip a slide, once it settles down, you'll see multiple threads. If you switch top to cap H, you'll see the multiple threads pop in and out. Now you might ask yourself, I've got something that can sniff packets. What about when it gets too much traffic? What does it do? What it does is it just doesn't load packets. You can set up a policy where you can say every packet must be inspected or I throw it on the floor. But for a lot of, basically as a practicum, the default is look at every packet you can, but it's only sniffing the wire, so it doesn't throw them on the floor. You can literally place 2 NICs on a machine, put Suricata in the middle, and say, I am the conveyor of packets, and if I didn't look at the packet, I'm throwing it on the floor. So you can get really intense about it. But in this case, if the CPUs are pegged, it's just looking at a copy of the traffic. Go back a little bit. This is just kind of idling along. So now we're getting into the sort of the measurement part. Did the solution we chose fit what we're doing? Or did it just use up all the CPU just to run? Well, it settled down, and it's using less than 10%. And if I go to one of my other devices, my main router, I can actually look at the live traffic, which is kind of handy. And it's just, well, it's just the SSH session is what this is looking at. And this is idling, you know it's running. You can be pretty confident it's doing its job so far. Go to the next slide. Let's fire up some Netflix. My smart TV has a Netflix client, and it actually works over Ethernet or wireless. And it's going to burn about 3 megs, from 2 to 5, depending on the source content. And once you start doing that, now we're getting down to business. 3 of the CPUs are pretty close to pegged. We're starting to dip into the 4th. And it's obviously doing something. Flip the slide, please. Suricata generates a number of logs. This is all configurable. It will break out individual events for later analysis. It can do a lengthy logging system, and then there's another thing called the fast log, which is the part that you're probably going to look at. And you'll see lots of traffic. This actually reveals a quirk in the Philips TV's IP stack. It's not acting very well, and that actually creates tons and tons of log traffic. And that's because they put some hacked up, who knows what they did to make their Netflix client work. This is one of the things go back for a second. This is one of the things you might have to tune out. So you're going to basically learn about your tool and tell it, stop logging that thing, because this was generating about 1 gig a day of log, and it was going to fill up it did fill up the device. Go to the next thing. So now we want to know, so we see noise, we see processes running, traffic's going through, but is it really doing its job? And so you can start looking around for certain traffic immediately or not. There is a website that they set up just for this purpose, and they set up a signature, and it's not really malware, but the notion that the Suricata folks came up with was, if you, on one of the machines that's on the segment being monitored, if you were to go to this website at all, the fact that you went to this triggers a signature, and it logs a packet that looks just like that, and it says, if you go to Black Sun, it looks like a Trojan, and there's possible Trojan activity. Now you're supposed to know that going there wasn't really a Trojan, and all it does is load a web page, so there's nothing scary about it. This is actually how you do it. You can just curl it, or you can go in a browser, and then you'll see the Black Sun Trojan was detected. Now you know it works. That's cool. And it all happened inside the sky. So now we're ready to move into the lifestyle. We're almost at the end of this, by the way. if you just get to know your machine by looking for certain keywords in the fast log, Trojan, suspicious, priority 1, compromised, there's actually a whole list of keywords on the Suricata webpage that you could look for. Every day you're going to want to see how fast your disk is filling. You see the root file system that I couldn't extend. That was the starting point, and it doesn't take long. In 2 days I could fill up 8 gigs. And your homework is to tune away all that noise and expand your space. If you want to get really fancy, you can turn on NTP, you can do remote logging, remote alerting, cron job rules updates, and now we're pretty much there. We're ready for questions. Yes, sir.
I didn't know you could trust the test website and the source of your rules.
I'm sorry, what?
The source of your rules
Mm-hmm.
and your test website. How do you know you can trust them?
How do you know you can trust them? The source of your I would want to trust them. I would believe they're trustworthy if I maybe knew those guys, and I could trust the people that put it up. It's open source software, so the notion is that you could, if you wanted to, you could look at all the signatures that come in your rule set. People would look at that, and if something was missing, they would say, "Well, why did you leave out that signature? Do you want something to get through?" Hey,
I'm thinking an analog to heartbeat.
analog to what?
Heartbeat.
Oh, to heartbleed.
Yeah, it's out there for years.
Yeah, so that's the thing. That's a great point, right? We can have all this signature detection, and if there was a bug that simply had not been detected, it's not gonna find. It's not gonna. I'm trying to think of the characteristics of heartbleed that would.
Well, I
I'm saying heartbeat is something I'm talking about.
Yeah.
You know.
I mean, so it goes with the whole NIDS stuff, right? You are trusting that someone out there knows about the attack and they have the signature. So if you're using commercial product or you're using an open source project, right, you're going to have a similar type of trust, right? So it gets down to who can you trust. And I think what this has done is it gives the thing, and the idea is, right, and you should absolutely do your homework, are these rule sets using the same rule sets or similar signatures that are available for the commercial stuff. So for instance, what Bruce said was the rule set he's pulling is allegedly 1 week behind the commercial stuff, right? So you're, in theory, vulnerable for a week that if you were paying your $600 or $350 a month or a year, you would not be, right? $1 a day. You would not, you'd have a week lead time.
Yeah, I'll describe a similar scenario. Recently, a more recent thing that Heartbleed was a vulnerability where the browsers could be induced to de-escalate the encryption level. And one could imagine how long it might take to patch or put out a config change that would squash that. But it would take much less time to put out a signature that says, I see that your TLS sessions are being down, or a request has come in to downgrade the TLS session. Whether that succeeds or not, you would be able to get the alert if they put it in the signature. I haven't looked specifically for that thing. But the notion is that when a 0-day exploit comes out, they may not have the fix for it yet, but they will likely pretty quickly have the detector to say somebody is at least trying, and then they can do something like squash the network connection or start sniffing the packets. Anything else?
So I want to do, we'll just do one more question, then I want to give Phil a chance to present his piece that we'll watch live here. What I'm going to do is when we make that change, I'm going to have anybody who's on the Hangout cut their mic and their audio, right, their speakers, because I'm going to use the TV so that everybody in the room can hear. So, just as a heads up, so we don't get that horrific feedback. But we will come back and we will have time for discussions and whatnot. And I'm actually happy that we now have some talks for next month. So, yes, question.
Last question. Just give us one. You got through all this, the hardware, the software.
And I gathered you didn't find where the problem was.
Yeah, I actually isolated to a machine that ran Windows 7.
Oh.
So did you kill Scarlet? You white shucks.
All right, you ready for this? One of the kids had already upgraded to Windows 10. This was the printer machine that could not be that I upgraded to 10, couldn't use the driver, and had to fall. So
That's what you get for dead trees.
Yeah.
Use dead trees.
Dead trees. Oh, because the kids have to kill trees for school.
Yeah.
So yeah, I did find a machine.
Excellent question.
What's the runtime? I think I ran them way over.
We are at like 25 minutes left of today. I think.
So
we
you
are
probably
about
ran
1
about
hour.
50 minutes.
5-0.
5-0.
Yeah, that was way over. This I blazed through this over lunch, and it was like 20 minutes. Sorry about that, guys.
No, that's great. So, so Phil, I'm going to let you say that you're presenting.
I'll sit around with you after this. We can kick around more stuff.
Okay, so Phil, if you can go ahead and say that you're presenting.
Phil, can we do a sound check?
Sure. Audio check.
I'm going to kill mine once I get on yours.
Yep.
Okay.
Can you tell her again?
Audio check. 1, 2, 3.
I'm going to kill my mic. Yes.
Okay. Audio check. I guess you're hearing me.
We're hearing you. I'm going to mute.
Great. So thanks for having me over. I'm over here in Tacoma Park, and you just saved me a drive by letting me come in via Hangout. I had an interesting story to share about my public library job and some Linux stuff I'm doing. So in my job, I help people who come to the library. We have 28 Linux stations. We open 7 days a week. And people are using our computers to look for jobs and sometimes for immigration forms or tax forms. And many times the people using our computers, they're low income. They might not own a computer at home, or they might not have internet at home. So they ask me interesting questions like, what is the most affordable internet that I could get at my house? And that's like a reference question. So I've done research to find the best internet service provider that might work for the needs of somebody who is unemployed and looking for a job. And the one I'm currently recommending is netzero.net. They have a few different plans, like a $20 a month plan, $30 a month plan, and these are plans where you can get online with a hotspot, but you are not going to be watching much YouTube videos because you're going to eat through your data allotment for the month. They give you either 1 gigabyte of data or 2, and as you know, you can eat through that in a half an hour or an hour if you're not careful. So I teach people how to be careful. I teach people how to monitor their data, and then they could be checking their email at home for job-related stuff, or they could be applying for a job at home. But most typically, they apply for a job at the library, and then I help them apply for the job. So as part of my work trying to get internet into the homes of people who are lower income or unemployed, I've been helping people get their first laptop. I buy a laptop over at PC Retro. They sell these $49 ThinkPads that are pretty nice. I think they're T61s, and I sell them at the same cost that I buy them. I change it from Ubuntu to Linux Mint because I can put on a better the XFCE desktop that's more lightweight, and then I install Chrome because Chrome is more lightweight than Firefox, and it's maybe going to meet their needs better. And then just recently, in the past week or two, I've had some real excitement. I found some nice Dell netbooks, the 2100 Latitudes, on eBay, and there's a school district that was selling them for $25 a piece, but you have to buy 10. So I took the risk. I said, listen, the school district is selling these. Some of them may not work, but the chances are most of them will work. And They did not come with the power supply, so I had to buy the power supply separately. That adds in an extra $10. But then I installed, they came without any operating system, these $25 laptops. But I started distributing them yesterday, and some of the folks that I'm helping were so thrilled to have a laptop. I'm charging $40 for these laptops. One of them that came in the batch wasn't working, so I have to cover a little bit of my risk. But the new laptop, this Latitude 2100, has a webcam. And so I can put Skype on there, the Linux version of Skype. And I install Chrome. I install a typing tutor. If the laptop's going to a family, I put on Clavero, which is a really nice typing tutor that they could use. And yesterday there was a single parent with a special needs child who's 12 years old. She said, if you can just put some games on this laptop. It's her birthday next week, and the mom was totally thrilled that here was a laptop that cost less than $50 and actually had a webcam so that the child could take photos with using Cheese. I put on Cheese. Anyway, I'm in a pretty unique position in that I work as an intelligent agent for people who some of them don't have technology at home, some of them don't have internet at home, and then I'm using whatever smarts I can to increase their internet access at home. And for those who want to have an affordable laptop, and then I end up with the sweet part of the deal, because these people come and bring me questions. They bring me questions to the library, and that's what I do for a living, is I answer questions. So I am their free tech support, which is reassuring to them that they're getting an affordable device, and then they have unlimited access to me. I work there 5 days a week. I'm there Monday through Friday. And the computer center where I work is open 7 days a week, so there's my coworkers there on Saturday and Sunday, and they're actually pretty strong at computers, although they may not know all the Linuxy kind of stuff I know, but I have a lot of faith in their abilities to find answers to people's questions. So one cute part of this story was I've been working at this public library for 10 years, and I just got a bonus, $1,000 bonus that came out of the blue. And so I said, well, what am I going to use my bonus for? So I get on eBay and I buy another 20 laptops, 20 of these $25 laptops. And so I now have a bunch of laptops coming in, and I'm hoping I can maybe take this to a public library someplace. My own public library, I'm not sure is the right place to be doing this. I'm already doing stuff there, but I might go to the Alexandria Public Library in Virginia, or perhaps the Prince George's County Library System, and say, I want to give a presentation about digital inclusion, digital divide stuff, and I want to show people solutions, which would include mobile hotspots for homes. Oh, by the way, if you haven't heard, the mobile hotspot called Karma is really kind of nice. A friend of mine has it. For $49, it's all-you-can-eat data at 5 megabits per second, and that's a better deal than any cable modem or FiOS. And if you're really smart, you might be able to share that data with somebody who lives nearby, because it's a hotspot. You can either walk it down the hall of an apartment complex, or if you drive over to a friend's house, or bicycle over or walk over to a friend's house, you could be both sharing that internet, not concurrently, but consecutively. So that's my little presentation. I'm just really, I get such a kick out of being able to be the intermediary between people who have needs and they don't have the technical expertise, and then I have the technical expertise and I have the interest in helping them come on board with digital stuff. The best story I can share, even from yesterday, one of the people I'm helping, I found her a ThinkPad laptop last year for $49, and she's now really comfortable on Linux. And she just picked up one of these Dell Latitudes from me for $40, and she says she's a blues guitar player. She said, Phil, if I find the right students, I'll be able to teach blues guitar via Skype, and from the revenue I get from my teaching of blues guitar from my home, I'll be able to upgrade my internet connection from the mobile hotspot to a wired connection. So that's my plan, is to help her try and get that done. And it's just so exciting for me. I'm a guitar player myself. So if she is able to do what she loves to do, which is play blues guitar and teach blues guitar, and if she's able to have Linux be part of that solution, I get so excited, because she's going to be telling other people. She already is a big fan of Linux. Even though she's not a big computer person, she just loves Linux, and that makes me happy, you know. She's also pretty adept. It's cool to see her jumping around the Linux desktop, and she has a high comfort level. So I guess it's step by step. You know, the Linux desktop may or may not happen on the very wide scale, but it can still happen in really significant ways on the personal scale, especially for people who are facing economic challenges in their lives. Linux can be the most happy thing you've ever seen in your life when you're facing economic struggles. So that makes me happy that I can be part of that picture. And it's fun too. My supervisor at my public library she's a Linux fan too, and so she doesn't mind me doing Linux installs during my workday. So while I'm helping folks with their questions in the computer center in Tacoma Park, I am at the same time doing Linux installs, and that's I consider that kind of a job perk, because I don't have to spend my own separate volunteer time doing Linux installs. I can do it as part of my workday, and so that makes it my workday even more enjoyable. I like going to work already, but you know, if you're a Linux nut like I am, and you're spending your day doing a lot of Linux installs on computers, going to people who really, really want those computers, that's actually a nice job perk. So I can go on talking if people want to hear more, but I also want to make sure I'm leaving time for the other presenters today. How are we doing for time?
Someone just turned down the volume there.
Yeah. How are we doing for time on your side? Any questions also? If you have a question, maybe you can tell Peter, and he can text chat it to me, and I'll answer it.
Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you too. Great.
Yeah, we just cut over so that we could listen and run everything off the laptop. We need to figure out the audio on our side. I have some ideas out there. They actually have, or last month we found a speaker system. So we'll figure out over time how to manage the speaker system. I want to thank you for sharing those. It was a great story. One of the things that I've started doing is when I talk to people, you know, in my job, and you know, it's a technology job and interfacing with a number of different people, is I had a presentation that someone gave me the other day.
Any questions we want Phil to answer first?
Yeah, any questions that we had for Phil?
You can also, yeah. Yeah.
I don't think so. But the reason I love that was it was a story about how you were using technology to solve a problem. It wasn't a discussion about technology, right? Bruce, he had a problem. His problem was he got a note saying you're hacked, and he saw the data and saw yes, and indeed he had over 1 terabyte of data go out over a month, 1.3 terabytes of data in a single month. And so he used technology to solve the problem. Phil is using technology to help people who, can't afford a, $100,000 computer, right? He's helping them figure out how to get online inexpensively and to be able to continue to do work at home, right? So one of the things he didn't talk about, but it will be interesting, and Phil, you can let me know, is, do you give the people or help people by giving them USB keys or telling them where they can go get free or inexpensive USB keys so they could work at home, download it to a key, and then bring it to the library to print out, to upload, to whatever. So learning how to work remotely. Phil?
And Phil just sent a comment that he can also answer questions, of course, on the mailing list. If anyone has follow-up.
Afterwards, yeah. So are you still hear me still?
Yeah.
The USB keys, that's a great thing. Do you know what I do? I go on eBay, and the key tip that I want everybody to take away today is that your eBay search skills can be very, very valuable. So what I do on eBay for USB flash drives, I look for SanDisk. SanDisk is the ones that are the highest quality. They don't go bad. And then I look for the word lot. So I say lot of USB SanDisk. And I usually buy these days the 8 gigabytes. The 4s are still available, but you can get great, really very, very attractive pricing on eBay. I might buy 8 or 10 at a time, or 20 or 4, whatever, and then I sell them at the same price I buy them for. And so that was a very good question. The people who want to buy a USB flash drive, if they go into a store, the store's going to charge them $30, and I get the same thing to them for like $7 or $12. So the money they save is vital in their life. And so, they're going into a store, they're going to buy the blister pack version of the flash drive. They don't need the blister pack. So thank you for that question, Greg. It was you're absolutely right. You got to be able to get the flash drives to folks. Most of the folks know how to copy the files onto the flash drive. Sometimes I need to give some coaching to some of the older folks. But most of the folks do. And we have a color laser printer here at the work. So they can print in color laser for 50 cents a page. And they could bring their photos. If they have photos they want to print, I'll show them how to use LibreOffice Draw, and they could have 3 or 4 or 8 photos maybe fitting on one single piece of paper, all printing for 50 cents. That ends up being a good deal, especially since they don't have to own the printer. They're just using the service.
Yeah, to that end, which you may or may not know about, is at Target, you can actually, from your computer or from your phone, send photos to Target for printout, and I think it's 24 cents for the printouts for 4x6. So, while it's slightly more expensive, it's on photo paper, and that's something that they may be able, interested in doing if they wanted something a little bit more backing than paper.
There's also a site that has an app. I think it's called Free Prints. I'll have to double check it. But they'll send you up to 80 4x6 prints a month for free with no subscription fees. And if you want, they make their money off of people who want larger prints or beyond that quantity.
So if you can share that to the list, that would be great. I'm sure, Phil, you would love to share that with the people that you're working with at the library. And I'm actually going to share that. I just gave a Shutterfly gift certificate to someone, and they gave me 50 or I think 100 free prints. And since my son moved to New York and he hasn't taken anything to hang on his walls, but he's a photographer, he said, "This is awesome. I'm just going to do all the printing and have them set, and I'll just plaster my walls with my own photos." So there are a number of great free things out there. Of course, buyer beware, read the free print and the rest, or the small print. But there are free things out there, believe it or not. I actually was talking to someone 3 years ago about Amazon Prime, and they were ordering textbooks because he teaches classes, and he was paying for 2 days shipping or next day shipping on textbooks. He was paying $100, $200 every time he shipped stuff to himself. And I said, you can get that on Amazon Prime. Those books are available. He goes, yeah, I don't trust that Amazon Prime. And I said, dude, $100 and you don't pay anything for shipping ever again for what you're doing. Really? So I think he finally did move over. So, granted, Amazon Prime is not free, but for those who can afford, $10 a month or $8 a month, if you do buy things online, is worthwhile. Yeah, Roger.
Become a student and
Yep.
get it 6 months free and half price. I'm going to become a student for the rest of my life.
Yeah. Well, I wish they did have, that's one of my, and I forget which one of my digital presents is that, it has, your job or whatever, and mine is Life Learner, right? I just wish I could, actually, you know what, I should probably figure out how to start my own school since we did homeschooling for a time, and I'm allowed to print out my own diplomas. I probably have a way to get an EDU so that I can save. Now that said, I'm one of the people that have no problem paying federal and state income tax. I have no problem paying twice as much as a student for my Amazon Prime to help offset the students and the others because I am lucky enough that I can afford to spend a couple bucks, although I'm about to have it out with Amazon because they said something was going to be there in 2 days and it took 3 days. And it was for my stupid rescue pup that likes to go. She was puppy pad trained, but she forgets that she's puppy pad trained, and she thinks that if she has her front legs on and her back end's hanging off, that counts. It does not. So I bought this box that's supposed to keep everything inside, but she doesn't want to step up a ½ inch to use it, so she's going right next to it. So I haven't figured out what the solution is besides making her live outside for 6 hours. But it's Amazon's fault because I lost a full day of training. But no, and I'm not going to complain, but I'm simply going to say, hey, because they gave you, please give us feedback, right? So the feedback is you told me it was going to be here, it was not here. The other one that I love, and this is not an exaggeration, I actually have the picture. So the box is this size, and the depth is this. So pretty big box. That's why. There we go. So Phil, you can hear, oops. Can you hear us now? Hold on, I'm trying to get you. I am not hearing you for some reason. Anyway, so I want to thank you. We'll go ahead and we'll kill this. Kill the screen share right here. And
I do have, John,